So let's go over these labs, the 39.5 to the 39.9, so that's inclusive. So there's 5 labs in all, and they all have to do with making objects, so practicing our object creation skills. And so we'll do one of these together, and then you will be responsible for making the other ones. Remember that they are the same in a lot of ways, and so use your problem solving skills to solve the other classes that you have to make. And remember that the classes will have all the same types of things, such as our constructors, our accessors, mutators to string, and possibly the equals method. All right, so here's our 5 labs, and so let's do these 3 are kind of like together, and so let's do the bank account class, and then you'll have the simple car class, and then these 3, remember they are related to do. So I'm going to open up the bank account class, and remember to follow the instructions, and it will tell you and help you out in some of the methods that you need to create these classes. You can create them outside of Canvas, of course, in the learn.zybooks.com, but click on it at least one time in Canvas here, and then you can open up your learn.zybooks.com and be able to code it over here. And I just wanted to remind you too that that other project we did together about testing objects, we're going to use all those same skills. So as I was mentioning, our constructor, always the constructor, is the same name as the class. No parameters means the default, actually that's the class name. And then the constructor looks like this. There it is. And no return tag. There we go. And for the default constructor, you give it default values, and for the non-default constructor, we give it values that we pass in as parameters. All right, so remember that we then have our main.java, and it then tests our objects that we create. And you'll see that in our zybooks too, which is another reason that we're going over this lab, so we can see how to code this. So here's our example lab that we'll complete together in this video. So in the file bank Java, build a class called bank account that manages checking and savings accounts. The class has 3 private member variables. That's what's important to me as a programmer. What are my member variables? What are my data variables? So I got name as a string, I got balance as a double, and I got account balance as a double. Perfect. And so if I go down here to my project, I can click on this little button on the left, and it shows me I have 2 files. Now this file has a lock sign, meaning that I can't edit it. So the test class, they're showing you what the test class looks like, how it's creating a bank account object called account, with the new operator calling that bank account constructor that must take in a string, a double, and a double. Okay, I'm thinking ahead that I'm going to have to make a constructor that matches that. And then has some set, it calls some set methods, calls some withdraw methods. I'm thinking I'm going to have to write a method to do that. Our methods. And then I have some transfer to checking method. So thinking, okay, I need to make some of these setters and getters, and then some of these specific methods for this class. And so this one does not have a locked method on it because you are supposed to write this bank account class. Now, if you forgot totally how to write this, you can go back to, some of those other zybook exercises but you should have some inkling how to write this, hopefully. Remember that you do your public class, and then, oops, your data variables. I had that on the clipboard. Okay, so data variables, and it actually told us what our data variables should be. And we could just even copy paste them, because why not? We know we'll spell them correctly. And that's what the constructor should look like. So then I know that my data variables also look like, and I can name them the same names. I do want to write it more Java style. So I do want to write the word private. That's why we have setters and getters, is we always make our data variables private, and we like to declare them one per line to make it easier for other programmers to read and see our data variables. It also makes it so AI can help us make the constructors, accessors, and mutators. Okay, so here, hopefully we remember how to make a constructor. This does need to be public. Remember that a constructor has no return type and has the same name as the class. So for this one here, we just need the this.newName to equal new name the parameter. And so we can write that in there. And we can copy even paste it. And then once we got one set up, we can Control C, and then Control V, Control V, Control V. And so then we can double click Control C, Control V, Control V, double click Control C, Control V, Control V, and get used to using our copy paste shortcuts to make us faster programmers, and we knocked that out. Now, I understand you could have used AI for that, but it's good to think about it, especially as we first make our object classes. So remember that the this operator pertains to this data variable, and that's how it differentiates between this one with the same name as the parameter, which we're passing into it from the constructor. So this over here is an argument that'll be passed into this type of constructor. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we need is we need to implement these methods. Now we could look at these methods as they're called in the main method, or we can just kind of think how to make them and just kind of check them off and make them. Okay, so you could copy paste what's called the header, and you copy paste it down here into your code and put your beginning and ending brackets. And this is why it's important to indent correctly, so that you can correctly put your code in the right place. So remember that when you're setting a name, you're doing the same thing that you were doing up here. So you can even copy paste that line of code, and because you name things consistently, it is easy to copy paste that. Now when you want to get name, remember that you're just going to return it. So again, indenting correctly, and it's very easy for me to just type. Actually, we need to call new name. So I could double click, Control C, double click, Control V. I always get my spelling right if you copy paste. So then you are checking off making these methods. Now if you need to know what these methods are returning or doing, it does have the explanation there. But this is good practice of you remembering what these methods should be doing. So this one is setting the check balance. So you want the this dot balance to be set to balance the parameter. Right? All right. So then you do your, your get. So again, remember your curly brackets and do them Java style, which looks like that. And this is the get method, so we're returning, remember, that check balance, which I'm just gonna double click, Control C, Control V, semicolon. All right, and then we're doing, now I'm getting tired of coming back and forth, so I'm just going to copy this whole thing and then make some of it into comments. Now if this starts getting annoying to you, remember that you can, you know, make this smaller, or you could even make that really small so then you have a bigger space. And you can also code this outside of this IDE, in your own IDE, and then paste it into here. But to, I guess we could do it like that. And then what we're doing here, remember, is just setting that balance. So remember to indent correctly. If you always work with properly indented code, you will read and write and understand code faster and become a better programmer. And even though we're using ChatGPT and all these tools to create code, actually a student came to my office hours and showed me the code that it had created, and it was really badly written. And so that goes to show you that you have to know how to prompt it and how to read code still. So you have to know how to talk about code to the machine in order for it to make the right code for you. Oops. So remember that you're implementing all these methods like I am, and this is why it's practice. And so remember too that I gave you a few of these labs. They're all kind of the same, and they tell you what to implement. So to be honest, if you did use a LLM tool to help you out, but you're still responsible for, again, prompting it and making sure that the output looks like this, which is our standardized code for us in this class. Okay, and so deposit checking. Actually, this is where we have to start thinking about our methods a little bit more. So here, deposit checking. We don't want to just set it to that amount. That would be kind of bad. If you had something in your checking, you'd want it to be added to that amount. So that member will add that amount to that amount parameter only if positive. And so I guess we should check that. So if amount is greater than 0, then we add it in, and it is a void method, so we'll just leave it like that, because otherwise we just don't. All right, and so hopefully that makes it work, and remember that we continue on writing these methods. And so this one, deposit in the savings, add a parameter amount to the savings account balance only if positive. So what's great about coding is a lot of times it's the same, and you can copy paste that. And if you name your parameters the same, what's cool is you can add it right in there. All right, and we want savings, and so let's see here. We want, oh, here we go, checking balance, savings balance. So down here, we don't want to just add in the amount. We want to add checking a balance. We want to add that amount into checking a balance. There we go. And then for the other one, we want to take the savings balance and add that amount into the savings balance. So make sure you are reading what your methods should be executing, and if it has any stipulations. Okay. And so, like I said, this is good practice for making our classes. And I'm almost finished. And after you're finished, I was going to demonstrate how to then run this code and then submit it. Okay, so withdraw from checking. So only if the account balance is positive. And so this is checking. So we need this balance. Remember, for that account object, its balance is bigger than 0. So we only want to let them withdraw. And then we will take that balance and subtract the amount. Remember that you can write it with the minus equals, or you can write it out this way, but the minus equals and this way is the same way. All right. So, and it's a void method, so we don't need to return anything. This thing, the same thing, so we can copy paste that logic. And instead of checking balance, it's now the savings balance. So make sure that you change it to savings balance. And then last but not least, we have the transfer to checking, subtract parameter amount from the savings account balance and add to the checking account balance only if positive. So I think we have to check, the way I read that was that the savings account had to be positive. And if that's positive, we need to do, two things. And so I'm going to now use curly brackets because I want to execute more than one line of code. And it says we want to subtract it from the savings account balance, but here's where we want to add it to the checking account balance. All right, and so that looks like all of my methods, and it looks like I have an extra curly bracket. And if you start getting, oh no, that is my correct curly brackets. I should have indented actually all of these methods since they are inside of the class curly bracket. And so, I'm not sure where I went wrong. Oh, right here. And so make sure, you try to indent right. All right, so then you can figure out if you have the right curly brackets. Now, you can run this code. Remember, you could always Control-A, Control-C after you've worked on your code a while and copy-paste it somewhere in case it stalls or internet connection lost or something happens. You may make a backup of your code over in Microsoft Word or Google Doc or I don't care where, Notepad. So that way you have a backup. So we just, probably wrote something wrong here and it says my bank account. And remember that these error messages do help you figure out where you went wrong. And so I called something balance and it did not like balance because we only have checking balance and savings account balance and no balance. So I need to figure out where I put balance. So set savings account balance. That would be savings account balance. Oops. So here, there we go, savings account balance, and then we did put that parameter as balance because we copy pasted it from our up above. What is this? Oh, we wrote this wrong, actually. I don't know what we were thinking here. Here we need to return, remember, a double of the savings balance. Okay. So it's just having a problem where we were calling out the word balance, which I think we have corrected for. And we can hit run. Remember that it is running our main program from over here. And it's still having a problem with balance. Oh, right here. Set checking balance. Yes, CH balance. And then the parameters still balance. Okay. I think we corrected all of it, and yay, it constructed that object, that bank account object, and outputted it. Now, after it does run our main program over here and outputs what we wanted it to output, we can go down here to submit for grading and see what it does. Now, if it has an error, it will try to tell you what's wrong with it or if you're missing a method. But if you just go down your list or copy paste like I did, it should work. And actually, I'm glad there's an error, so let's figure out what we did here. So it says, you know, test that bank account correctly initializes our bank account tests. So there's deposit and checking -$5. And then they withdraw with checking -$5. And they got the account balance. And it equals 100. Negative deposits did not change. Okay, this is where it failed. Withdraw checking. Negative withdrawal should not change $100 checking balance. Okay, so if they're trying to withdraw a negative number, we need to stop it. So do read your error messages, you know, where it's not passing that unit test, and you should be able to figure out, hopefully, you know, what you did wrong. And so, you know, we come back over here and we think about our logic again, and it's when we were which one was it again? It was withdraw checking. So we look for our withdraw checking, and we checked if the balance was greater than 0. But we were supposed to also check, let's read it. Only if positive. So they also wanted to check if amount. So I'm just going to do an and. Or maybe I just put amount, because maybe balance can be negative. So maybe I just read that instruction. So I'm going to check if the amount is greater than 0, then it will affect the balance, which should suit that unit test. And remember that you can test this multiple times, it doesn't hurt it. And if we did something wrong, remember to make like one change at a time and see if it passes the tests. Okay, and so we come down here again, and it still doesn't like it. It says where it failed. Negative withdrawal should not charge $100 savings balance. So it's the savings ones now. Maybe because we copy pasted it. So withdraw savings is failing. So let's go over to withdraw savings, and we will do the same thing. We'll change this to, we're checking if the amount, and then we'll submit it again. And this is called debugging. Remember, in debugging, you make a change, you think about what your output should be, and then hopefully finally you get your 10 out of 10, and we finally got our output for all of our different unit tests. And so now we're checking the correct parameter, and we get our 10 out of 10. All right, so You're going to practice with your labs. This was 1 of 5. Remember that the last 3 are very much similar, meaning you can copy paste them, remember, because they are super similar and built off of each other, which are your coin ones. Okay. All right, so that is this helper video, and I'll see you in the next video.